Sup, guys? Welcome to chapter 2. We've made it this far, right? Chapter 1 was kind of a joke. I mean, there's like a bunch of stuff to like memorize, but you're going to be at home with like books and stuff, so whatever. Chapter 2 is a little bit more involved. Uh, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's gonna keep ramping up from here, but chapter 2 is where like we actually start doing a little bit of econ. So let's talk about it. I've already got several videos made covering the technical content of this chapter. So this particular lecture is more of an overview to make sense as to why we use this stuff and who actually cares. Okay, that's all it is. So that's why this one's fairly short. Yeah, if you end up with questions about anything in this chapter, there are the discussions forums in Brightspace. That's the best place to ask your questions. Okay, that's better than emailing me, because there's a lot of you. And in online classes in the past, I tend to answer the same question in like 5 different emails or more. So I'd really appreciate it. Bring those questions to the discussion boards. Everyone can see them. And there's a lot less redundant use of time. You know what I mean? All right, so let's see. I think the hard part of this chapter is all the opportunity cost and trade stuff. And I got some cool videos on like the technical parts of it. But let's look at this picture behind me right now. All right, electricians. I am hiring an electrician as we speak, paying them several $1,000s to bring electricity from my house to a shed in the backyard that I am converting into an office space. I'll be able to work at home, but not in home, which is really cool when you've got 4, almost 5 kids running around. No commute, but I won't have to hear all the screaming and fighting all day while I work. It's going to be pretty dope. All right, it's going to be awesome. But I had friends who said they knew how to do electrical stuff and that we could do this. And I'm paying thousands of dollars to not do this, even though I had friends who said they could. So let's figure out why I would do that. And to put it pretty simply, I'm going to use simple numbers, partly because I didn't do enough math, and partly because I don't want to tell you exactly how much I make per hour. American culture thing. It's really stupid, but we have this thing about not telling each other wages. Whole side note about information asymmetries in the labor market. We'll save that for another day. Anyway, let me just make up some numbers. Let's say the electrician is so good at what he does, or she, but this one's a he, is so good at what he does that he could literally get this job done at a rate of $25 an hour. And that's all it would cost for him to break even. And he could just like zip through, it wouldn't be hard for him, he'd be fine. And let's say I'm willing to pay him $120 an hour for his awesome work. Now, where do these numbers come from? These are related to opportunity cost. Okay. He is willing to accept something as long as I'm paying him at least the cost of him making it. And the idea would be if he's willing to work for $25, that's the value of his next best option. If I were to pay him less, he'd go do his other thing, his opportunity cost, his next best gig. Maybe he like owns a bakery and he's like got wicked good cookies or something. I don't know. Anyway, he's got some outside option, which is going to keep him from working unless he gets paid at least $25 an hour. Now, so there's opportunity cost for him. Now, what about for me? I don't know what I'm doing with electrician stuff. Nope. I like woodworking and doing like projects, but electricity, I don't want to like burn my house down or anything. I don't know what I'm doing. Now, what if the labor he did in his hour would have taken me 2 hours to complete. Maybe even more. Maybe it would have taken me like 3, 4, 5 hours, but I'll just do 2 hours for easy math. I said I was willing to pay him 120. So that's like, if I spread that over 2 hours, that'd be like saying that the value of my time, I would rather have those 2 hours to myself and pay him 120. Suggesting I'm going to make at least that much during those 2 hours. There's a cost on my time to get this job done. I might have to give up 2 hours of my wages. Okay, so we both have opportunity costs, and his is lower than mine. He can make this project cheaper than I can. And that is when people trade. Because you don't pay an electrician $25 an hour. No. You pay him like 70 or 100 or more dollars an hour. Yeah. You pay them a ton. We can get into occupational licensure and topics like that later. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, he charges some price above his minimum cost. Assuming he has any market power whatsoever, which he probably does. And then I pay some price below my maximum willingness to pay. And so if I give him $100, he's making money, receiving more than his costs. I'm saving money, paying less than my costs. And thus we are both better off because of this trade. See, that's how opportunity cost helps an economist. It creates a reason for people to interact. Anytime two people have different opportunity costs for the same product, the one with the lower cost has what we call comparative advantage, and that person can specialize and trade. Okay, I am not specialized in electrician stuff. Jim is. You know what I'm specialized in? Crazy data work. And that's what I do. So how does this all work? Well, Jim can do the electricity stuff cheaper than I can, so I pay him to do it. I can do the data work cheaper than most people can, and so I specialize in that. And I can sell my services for more than the cost of providing them. Right? If you have the lower opportunity cost in a market, specialize and sell that thing that you can do cost effectively. That's what makes trade happen, and that's what makes the world go around. Maybe I'm overselling it. Maybe it doesn't literally make the world go around, but you know what I mean. Another example, when's the last time you went to a restaurant? Right? I don't know what it was. When I was in Seguin, my favorite was Garcia's. That place is so good. Beef fajitas every time, man. I can't get enough of those. Anyway, why do you go to a restaurant? I'm sure you've heard that it's cheaper to eat at home, right? Eating at a restaurant's terrible for your budget. But opportunity cost, as you may recall, is not just the dollars out of pocket, it's everything you give up. So you're giving up dollars out of pocket, that's true. Okay. Dollars out of pocket, advantage goes to eating at home. But what other costs are involved if you eat at home? I have to take a bunch of time to cook my food. I'm a busy man. Sometimes that's a prohibitive constraint, sorry. Another cost is I then have to do my dishes, right? You can add up a few of these. And when you add up the dollar costs and the time costs and the dishes costs and whatever other costs, sometimes you're willing to go to a restaurant and pay extra in order to have your meal. Okay, so how does opportunity cost work for that? Okay, my opportunity cost of making those fajitas is high. But if I go to a restaurant where there's a whole army of people with a stocked kitchen and all the equipment ready, and they're already cooking Mexican food, it's really easy for them to make fajitas for me. And so they can sell those fajitas at a cost high enough that they make money and low enough that I'm willing to pay for it. And thus, I eat at Garcia's, and I'm happier, and so are they. So, there's another example of opportunity cost and trade. Now, the other model mentioned in this chapter. Oops, wrong computer. I have two computers up, guys. Anyway, the other model is this circular flow diagram. Now, this one doesn't look exactly like the one in your book. I just Googled it. Okay, there's a million of them. Hey, look, over here, there's more than a dozen more. But they're all pretty much the same. All right, we got a market for goods and services. That's where people buy and sell goods, like actual physical products, like this microphone I'm using to make this video, this mouse, my kid's shoe. I don't know why it's by my computer, but whatever. Okay, physical products like goods, but also services. My teaching you, classified as a service. You going to the doctor, service. The electrician, service. Go to the bank or see an accountant, services. Anything where you're like buying and selling and there's like a receipt where you've bought something so that you can benefit from it and use it, it's a market for a good or a service. There's households. That's you and me. That's econ speak for regular people. And there's firms, which is econ speak for businesses. Right? People like you and me, we buy goods and services from firms. It's the product that the company is selling to us. And when we do, our money flows to them as they give their goods and services back to us. Now, that's half the circular flow. The other half is on the back end, there's also a different sort of transaction. Because where do we get our money from? We get paid. What do we get paid for? We get paid for working, for most of us. Maybe you're independently wealthy and have a huge investment portfolio, but if you're going to college, chances are you're planning to work. So I'm going to stick with the working example. We're going to call that a factor of production. There's land, there's labor, there's capital, there's entrepreneurability, there's capital's got subsets like human capital and physical capital. By the way, when I say capital, if I don't give any other like explanation of it, capital means tools and equipment, not banking like net worth or anything like that. All right. In an econ class, capital is tools and equipment. It's a hammer. It's a robot arm for putting the wheels on a car. It's the computer an accountant uses. It's lights. It's electrical grid. It's tools and equipment. All right. Anyway, all that stuff, if you zoom out far enough, is owned by people. And I'm going to use the labor example, but it also applies to land. It also applies to tools and equipment. We provide stuff, labor, land, capital, whatever, to firms in this market for the factors of production. Okay, it's another market where we and firms come together and trade. But in this case, we're not doing the goods and services. We're doing those factors of production, land, labor, capital mostly, maybe some other subsets. We bring our factors of production to the firm through this market, and they send money back to us. Okay. And so they pay us for working, and we use that money to buy the stuff. They use that money to pay us to make more stuff, and then we use that money to buy more stuff. And around the money goes. When you put it that way, the whole economy sounds pretty lame, but it's cooler than that, I swear. Okay, now let me just briefly add another piece in here. This gets kind of interesting. Okay, so this one's flipped, right? They have the factors of production, or they call it a resource market up here. Same deal. See, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurability. That's the factor market. It's up top now instead of bottom. And here's a product market. where the goods and services flow. And in this one, I'm going to throw the government in there. I'm just going to do this briefly. We're going to come back to this in chapter 17, I think, because the government can also buy goods and services, and the government can also do taxes and spending, right? So I want you to think about this, and I just digest it for a while. So let's say the world's minding its own business. The money is flowing. Actually, no, sorry. The money's flowing this way in this model. Money's flowing around and around. See, revenue. Okay. And people are buying stuff. And let's go back a couple years. COVID hits. When COVID hits, we shut down a bunch of businesses. It was only temporary, but a lot of places shut down, and then some shut down for good, but whatever. It was only supposed to be temporary. Now, that meant that businesses no longer were providing goods and services. Certain businesses, of course, some were open, and those businesses then no longer had to hire workers. Now, as you might guess, this is going to mean a lot fewer dollars circling around the economy, right? Okay, if they shut down, they're not selling their crap, and then they don't have to hire you to make the crap. And then you don't have any money left, so you don't go to another business and buy crap, and so on. That can be a really vicious negative spiral where these arrows just skinny up and dry up until they're all much less than they used to be. And so what was the response to this? Well, 3 different times we did a stimulus package. What's the stimulus package? That was when the government gave tons of money to people, right? There were stimulus checks, there was all kinds of business help and business loans and all kinds of other stuff. The government was injecting money into these channels. Okay, let's just talk about a stimulus check for a second. Okay, to the households. The government lessens the net taxes, maybe. That's giving you money. Negative taxes, them giving you stuff. They inject a bunch of money into the houses, and now the houses can buy more stuff at the businesses that are still open. And those businesses have to keep their workers happy and keep paying their workers. And they're going to buy more workers, buy more labor. You can't buy a worker. When we injected the money into the economy, the hope was to interrupt the vicious spiral and counteract it a bit so that things stay sort of level. Now, we'll come back to all that later. I just thought it was kind of interesting. But I think I should give you kind of some good overview ideas. This was not a comprehensive lecture, guys. Right? This is an asynchronous class. You're going to have to read your book. You should also watch the other videos where I do the technical stuff, the calculations of opportunity cost, figuring out what makes for a meaningful trade deal and stuff like that. So watch those. If you have questions, put them in the discussion forums. In the meantime, I hope this was at least kind of interesting. And I hope that it helps make the rest of your study make sense. So guys, peace out and enjoy chapter 2.